let's say I have this Matt Ryan 2009 Upper Deck football card, right? It's a second year card. How many of these have been graded? Probably like less than 100. I get this graded. Guys, this is a low pop card. There's less than 100 out there, right? If it gets back at 10, there's probably 10 of these guys. This is a second year Matt Ryan Upper Deck card. This is a pop 5. I'm telling you, this is the next investment card.
What's the origin behind Breakout Cards? Because I saw that you started the channel in about September 2020, but the first couple of videos are of your boy Steven. So
Yeah.
what were you? Did you start off like behind the scenes kind of, and then you're like, all right, no, I want to be on camera now too, because now
Pretty
it's
much
kind of shifted to like now you're the primary guy. It seems like.
Yeah, so last year I was kind of doing like my own marketing startup, learning like search engine optimization and different things like that. And I was like, I want to build out a sports card channel, but I didn't have enough time for that. And my friend Steven, we both went to University of Central Florida, and he was also a little bit into cards, but wasn't like fully into the card game yet. So I was like, hey man, how about we start going to shows? I'll record some videos and things like that, and I'll start marketing it, build a website, everything like that, go through. I'll occasionally be on videos and things like that. So he agreed to that. And then just, I guess over time, I just started doing more of the video side of things. He does more behind the scenes. And that's where it's kind of been working out recently, and it's been working pretty well.
Nice, man. What ultimately made you guys want to start up a channel for sports card content specifically?
Honestly, just the fun of it. I mean, we wanted to go out there and talk to people, have fun at different shows. I mean, there's so many different shows in Florida. There's like 4 or 5 every single month. And, just building out videos. There's no videos out there for these shows themselves. I decided like, okay, let's tap into this market. No one's doing this in Florida yet. Yeah. So we decided to just make these videos and publish them, and people like them. So we decided, all right, let's start figuring out how we can make these videos better every single week, adding 1 or 2 different elements. That way the video quality can continue to rise up. And, that's how you end up getting better content overall, meeting new people. I mean, the connections have been made the last few months. It's unbelievable. If you told me a few months ago, or even like a year ago, that I was able to meet some different YouTubers, I was able to meet literally James Beckett, the guy who founded Beckett Magazine and Beckett Grading that I read when I was a kid.
Yeah,
I would have never believed that, but it's been insane.
Yeah, it's crazy how much hobby content, but even just the hobby in general, can open so many different doors that you never expect to, ever go through, right? What I love the most about your channel when I came across it is out of all the channels making sports card content, yours has arguably the most one of the most that has a how do I phrase this? I'm clearly not articulating my thoughts very well right now, but it has a lot of substance, which I feel like a lot of content creators somewhat lack, or it's kind of one dimensional. A lot of your videos are super like informational and they're super resourceful, right? When it comes to safely removing cards from top loaders, like things that people are like, they didn't think, oh yeah, there's a method to this, which is like, it's super useful. And then the biggest one is, how to spot fakes that you've been doing a series of that. Okay. Before I get into my next thing, I just started a tangent train of thought. When you're making the videos about how to spot fakes, do you ever wonder if the people making these fakes, they see your content or they see this and they're like, okay, hold on, now I gotta, then they take notes and try to make like, because there's some fakes out there that are like super, super accurate to the real thing now. And I've talked to a lot of different people in the hobby, and they're always saying that they've always told me, or most of them, they're like, yo, if you know how to spot a fake, don't publicize it, just because the guys making those fakes will take notes from it. That's why I always ask people whenever I'm trying to, like, say if I'm looking for example, I bought a Kobe auto recently, and I was looking into I was like, okay, how do I know if this is real or not? And I reached out to this guy on Blowout, who is like a super expert when it comes to spotting like 90s fakes. And he's always saying, it's like, yeah, we don't publicize it anymore because all of the all the fakers have been taking what we've been spotting, and they've been applying it to what they're doing. So
It's definitely a double-edged sword at that point. I think there's so many that are circulating around, though. It's at least good to put out that information and
yeah.
people learn about the details. I mean, through all the videos I talk about using a loop at card shows, or even like if you see it in person, just that way you can see the printing. And the printing is the hardest part to replicate, especially you're looking at a card, let's say from the 30s or 50s or 60s. No one's going to be able to replicate that printing process. And if they're able to, I mean, kudos to them because it's so difficult to be able to do so. But your average con artist or your average skimmer is going to be able to do that. So I think putting out that information out there and allowing people to see that firsthand, this is the printing details that you need to look at. These are the different minor details on this card that are missing, helps out the hobby more than it hurts it.
Yeah, absolutely. I find it so fascinating, the different layers and levels of intricacy that comes to spotting all these different fakes. I remember watching an episode, I think it was Pawn Stars, where some guy brought in like a fake Babe Ruth like rookie card.
I remember that one. Yeah.
And I'm like, and he was saying, he's like, yeah, it's legitimate. I'm like, yo, if that's a legitimate Babe Ruth, why the hell are you bringing it to Pawn Stars? I'm like, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, that has to be fake, but at the same time, it's like, okay, but how can you know for sure? And then they bring their experts in or whatever, and they do the very dumbed down version of spotting the fakes. It's like, oh yeah, this is what's wrong and everything. So that's
all right.
It's cool seeing your videos and just seeing just how intricate it really is. So, but yeah, man, I love how much substance your videos have, specifically, your card show vlogs. That's how I found your content. And it was funny because literally the week after is when you had your appearance on After Hours with Jeremy. And I was like, oh, sweet. I just found this guy. This is sick.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, what I love most about your card show vlogs is just, okay, I'm going to be real with you, man.
Yeah.
A lot of the card show vlogs out there suck. Like they're absolute trash. I'm sorry to say. Okay, like I'm not like, I don't like bringing down other creators and stuff like that. But the thing is that the majority of card show vlogs I see, it's the same stuff over and over. Like people are going around, they're going with different people, they're just chopping it up. But I go back again to how your content offers a lot of substance. Like you can really feel the narrative and your purpose behind why you're making a vlog, right? From start to finish. And then you have the little trivia bits in between, and then you have those little like history lessons too. I'm like, man, I love it because it's very rare that I'll watch a vlog from start to finish. There's only a select few YouTubers, and they're not even like card show vlogs specifically. So I'll watch your vlog from start to finish because I'm just so enthralled by it because you really the effort shows. And we talked about this briefly in one of your comments, but the intros to your vlogs, I was like, man, this guy watches Casey Neistat. I know for a fact. So then and then when I brought it up to you, and you're like, I like Casey Neistat, Peter McKinnon, Eric, which that was a name that really caught me off guard because most people who like Eric, they only got into him last year because his meteoric rise on YouTube has been something else, man.
It's crazy. So yeah, actually, funny enough, so I took his Creators Now course last month or 2 months ago. So I learned a lot about storytelling and editing and development because they had Logan Paul's editor in there talking about how you can splice up clips, how to tell a story, narrative, everything like that. So I took a little bit of elements from Eric and him teaching through that type of stuff, Logan Paul's editor, and started throwing that in the videos as well. And I found that the results ended up working with that. But with Casey Neistat and Peter McKinnon, like they all have different elements of editing. And if you can take some of the best things, I mean, these guys are the best editors on YouTube, best storytellers. You can throw them in a card show vlog. The audience retention should get a little higher. I mean, sure, like we were talking about a little bit earlier, they suck. Look at my first card show videos. I literally just went around, or Steven went around, and we just showed what the pickups were like. Cool, I picked up this card. That's it. And then went quickly and went really fast to the displays where people couldn't even watch it. Like, and the comments are like, slow down on looking at the displays. I can't even see the cards. And then Like I had no microphone. Like it was all there. My camera right here going around like that, just doing this, right? Talking to people. The sound quality was awful, and it was a horrible piece of production. But and this goes out there anyone that wants to start a YouTube channel. Just get the content up. You
Yeah.
can improve week to week. There's a philosophy. I can't remember the book's name. Atomic Habits, where it talks about getting a 1% improvement every single week. Look, if you look at my channel, I try to go to card show every single weekend and try to upload that same content within the few days after. When you edit every single week, you're going to learn new different processes. You're going to learn, oh, I should add this into the video. You're going to get feedback from your audience, and you start creating your own different style. You create your own story that you can start telling. Like the idea from Pawn Stars, I grabbed the trivia question. I know people watch Pawn Stars. I remember watching when I was really young. I like the trivia aspect of it. I threw that in the video, and I've had talked to a few dealers. They're like, oh, I really like the trivia question. So guess what? I put one of those dealers in my last video. So not only do I give more value to the dealer because he likes watching the content, now I can say, I was in this video. I asked the trivia question for that. He's always going to watch my videos. It's about giving value to people on top of creating a story. And that's what some of these different shows do. I mean, if you look at Pawn Stars, how much information you get from that. And they're just not there saying, I just bought, this is very simple. Oh, I bought this Mike Modano card. They're talking about Mike Modano, his history behind him, like one of the best US hockey players, then talking about the card, the set in it, and then they negotiate a price. And that's what I try to do with the videos themselves. It's not about just one aspect of it. Another thing I want to say, like, talk to dealers, talk to the people at the show, because there's a narrative obviously of what you're doing at the show, but so many people are doing other things like that. So try to figure out what's going on at the show.
Yeah, man. And you hit the nail on the head there. It's a philosophy I try to live by it myself, where it's like, as long as your content is constantly evolving and constantly as long as you're trying to make your next video better than your last one, and you're always making sure that you're adding value, right? If you're going to get someone to sit down and watch or consume your content for 10 minutes, an hour or so, you want to make sure that it's worth it for them, right? Because it's like, that's time out of their day. And again, I don't mean to knock on the creators who put out not the best vlogs, but it's one of those things where some just stay stagnant, right? They just keep putting out the same thing over and over and just going. They're not trying to get better, and it ultimately it's not even just a content perspective, but it's just like, an overall life perspective, right? It's like, if you're not always trying to get better and trying to better yourself in whatever facet of life that you're into, it's like, what's the point, right? You're just, you always want to elevate yourself, right? So.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I know a lot of people too, they don't want to get into it because it takes so long. Like my videos right now for card shows, they take 10 plus hours to edit, between doing all the minor details, rendering it once to make sure everything's okay. The render time of the video, because some of them are 20, 30, 40 minutes long, clipping everything, getting the clips themselves organized. It's a process. It's not just going out here, shooting a video and throwing every single clip in. Not every clip makes the video. Then you have to trim it, make sure audio's there, add in voiceovers, add in stock footage, add in audio. It's a long process for anyone that wants to, try to get to that next level, just as a heads up.
Yeah. And like I said, it really shows in your content, like the time and effort you put into it. So I guess, I have to ask, man, you went to school for electrical engineering and now you're a data analyst.
Yeah.
What's your deal, man? Is that what you really want to do? Or is this like, is the whole, the hobby content or just content in general? Is that what you really want to do?
That's a tough question. I mean, I literally just graduated last year. And the past year, I was trying to do a marketing startup with a few friends. And that didn't work out well. And I ended up going very low on funds. So I decided I needed to take on a job. And I like looking at like data and analytics when I go and prospect and everything like that. I have a little bit of a coding background as well. I knew a little bit of SQL, and I've used Tableau in classes. So I could either go electrical engineering route. I could go the analyst route. I actually applied for jobs in both positions.
Nice.
Had some interviews with those, but I decided to go the data analyst route. I got my job offer with that. And I look at it this way. Data analyst is going to apply a lot to sports card and prospecting and looking at the data fully. I mean, You have to look at the data to figure out what to invest in. And same with data analysts, you're good looking at data to figure out if a company needs to make a specific decision or not. You're looking at Tableau and doing a lot more advanced stuff with that. So I think I'm going to do that full time and just this on the side. And who knows what happens in 5, 6, 7 years? Everything changes. I mean, literally a year ago, I would have never known that I'd have a YouTube channel grow the way it is. I mean, I'm just building out vlogs for fun. So it's so hard to predict the future, but I definitely need to go with the analyst side of things because it's a full-time job, brings money in my pocket.
Stability.
Sports cards, it's fun. Could I make a full-time living with it? Yeah, but I'd have to sell off my PC cards. I have to continue to flip, and you don't build up wealth. You don't build up assets like that. I mean, a lot of people I see just go out here to buy a card $100 and then sell it for $200. Sweet, but they don't realize that $100 card has potential to go to $400 or $500 if they sit on it a year or two. And you look at it from that perspective, is it better to sell it for $100, take that money right now and invest in other things, or is it better to hold on to it for a little bit longer and get that 400 or 500? Personally, I don't know. Same with the person that's buying the card at the same time. Everyone has their different strategies, but I collect a lot of pre-war and the pop reports are very low, so I'd rather just hold on to these cards instead of flipping them.
You're early 20s, right?
Yeah,
early 20s
I'm 23.
Yeah, okay. That's what I love about having people on who are like younger, closer to my age or whatever, is that when I ask a question, it's like, yo, man, so it's like, what's your how do you see your life in 5 years or whatever? Just asking like those questions of, because the thing is like we really don't know what the future holds, right? Because it's like we're in our 20s, we're in that stage of our life where, we can really do anything we want to. It's just a matter of which dominoes fall, right? So do you ever if the YouTube content and if you start taking it to the next level where you're really in a place where you can earn a full-time income, would you see yourself doing that?
Not right now. I think I'm going to go more
Fair.
on the data analyst side of things because
Of
the
course.
growth potential is larger there, and
Fair
just
enough.
continue this as a hobby. At that point, then I can help pay other people to edit the videos or run things behind the scenes that I do manually right now. And that way the production continues to increase. The content is still being put out. The hardest thing is going to be time management, which I've been looking a lot into, because every day I try to go to the gym, try to run on top of building out videos and still going to work. So, and I have a girlfriend too, and I have to live life. So you have to manage a lot of different things throughout the day rather than just saying, okay, I'm just going to build out a YouTube video or do some research. So that's going to be the hardest part with that. I know there's a lot of different struggles with everything, and I know I'm going to be able to figure that out from there.
Yeah, for sure. At the end of the day, it ultimately comes down to what your priorities are, right? And it's just it's clear. Yeah, it's clear. It's clear you have yours, and time management's always the biggest thing. It's when you're trying to do so many different things, because we only have one life. We want to do as much as we can. It's trying to fit everything into your schedule. That's always the toughest part. But yeah, I guess you already mentioned how you collect pre-war cards and everything like that. So let's talk about your hobby origin story, so to speak.
Sure.
Because you're named after Nolan Ryan, of course. I know your dad used to own a shop.
Yeah. So my dad owned a baseball card shop in the 90s. Back then, it was kind of like where the hobby's at today, but baseball card stores were everywhere throughout cities. I mean, now obviously eBay and everything like that wasn't back there. So anyone that wanted to sell a card would open up a brick and mortar. And back in the 90s, my dad was in the baseball card business and owned a store. He ended up selling off the store to his partner before it ended up closing out. But he tells me about all the different mass printing, talking about what holds value over time, talking about how the hobby's changed. I know a lot of people are brand new to the hobby the last 2 or 3 years, but if you guys need to research a little bit into the 90s and how everything changed, because where the hobby's at right now is very eerily similar to where it was in the 90s. You look at the pop report on some of this modern basketball, modern football, and everything like that. Sure, there's parallels that are going to hold their value for a long time. You look at the Tiffany cards in the 90s, those still have a lot of value. But if you look at the base cards, even if they're chrome or not, the pop reports on some of this stuff is even higher than the stuff mass produced in the 90s. So be very careful if you're spending all your money on this type of stuff, because there are corrections in the market. And I know nowadays the market's a lot more global than it was back in the 90s. 90s was US only. Sure, there's collectors in the United Kingdom, but they focus more on pre-war tobacco cards. And that's a whole nother discussion for another day about like English collecting societies and different things like that. But in the United States, we're talking about baseball, football, basketball. And even in the early 2010s and 2000s, when I was collecting, card shows were literally in malls, like 20 or 30 dealers, or at flea markets.
Wow.
And the hobby was completely different. I mean, the hobby was, I wouldn't say dead, but comparative to where it's at today, you'd be like, this is a card show. There was no excitement at all in them. People had still like penny boxes, nickel boxes, quarter boxes, which I loved rating because you could find $5, $10 cards in there and you spending a quarter. Awesome. But people have to realize the hobby's evolved a lot the last few years. It could still always go back in there if people start leaving. I know things have changed quite a bit, but do your history, learn about the hobby a little bit more just beyond these last 4 or 5 years, because you'd be interested to see what happens with that.
Yeah, and honestly, man, that's what I love about you, because you came into the hobby, very young. Your father brought you into it, and you have such a reverence for not just the history of the hobby, but also history of baseball and everything like that. So fuck, hold on.
Nah, you're good.
It's one of those things, your mouth gets dry and it's just like,
that's why I just have this huge water over here. So I know podcasts, I always have to drink so much. Yeah. This guy just always drinks the water.
That's a comment I've had in previous episodes. Just like, bro, you drink out of your Gatorade bottle way too much. It's like, I need it because I can't speak properly if I don't drink water.
People don't realize, like, when you're talking for an hour or 2 hours long, like, you have to keep hydrating.
Yeah. Okay. So basically what I was trying to say before, I got all, flustered. I don't even know. I don't even know what the right word is for that. But yeah, I was talking to Jeremy about this last night, how a lot of the new people coming into the hobby, they're coming in from like the sneakerhead culture, the hype beast culture. They're here for the quick flip. And me initially, that was part of the reason why I got in, but it wasn't entirely it, because I'm just so fascinated. Whenever I find something I'm passionate about or I enjoy, I get so consumed by it and like the history behind everything. So when I really started to dive into the hobby, I was looking back to like the history behind like basketball cards, the history behind like baseball cards, and just seeing how far back it goes, because I find it so fascinating. And I guess what I want to ask is that something that was instilled in you because your dad had brought you into it? So that's why you have such a fascination for pre-war cards and whatnot.
I'd say for vintage, yes, but for pre-war, that was on my own. So my dad never bought a pre-war card. He always preached vintage cards to me, and that meant 50s, 60s, 70s.
Right.
I think the pre-war side of things also I never really got into, because most of the dealers at the card shows I went to, at least in my memory, because I was obviously really young, never really sold pre-war cards. And the flea market, which was my LCS, there was a guy there, Mike the Greek. He ended up selling mostly vintage stuff like 50s, 60s, 70s, but nothing pre-war. And at least I always thought until like the last few years ago that pre-war stuff was super, super expensive, because you would think something from like a Hall of Famer or like a Babe Ruth or Ty Cobb, 1920s, 1930s, whatever like that, is going to be a super expensive card. But comparative to some of the other vintage cards, they're the same price or if not cheaper. And because when I found that out, I really got fascinated into it. And maybe it was my ignorance as well. I always thought pre-war was just maybe baseball and a little bit of boxing, but I realized also now that there's a lot of cricket cards. I've learned that there's a lot of different soccer cards, that there's golf cards. So I'm still trying to go out here and research this type of stuff, because there's so little information out there on, who's the best players to go after, what are the true rookie cards. Because if you look back, then there's brands that printed 2 or 3 years in a row, and then there's brands that are put in the middle. So was this card printed in this year, or was it a 3-year print run? So is that considered a rookie or whatnot? There's a lot more information out there that I'm trying to research. And as I research it, I'm still trying to build out content for that. And like one of the big series is I'm going to be publishing later this year, based off of research, is cricket cards. Nice. There's not much content on cricket at all on YouTube. And it's one of the big 3 sports out there. I mean, if you look at how many people end up playing the sport. So, and I also know from talking to other pre-war collectors that there's a huge following in the United Kingdom people that collect
Huge.
cricket cards.
Yeah.
So I decided that later this year, I'm gonna be building that out, showing people these are the guys that you should be looking after. Here's how I researched this. So you can research it yourself if you want to go into another different sport. Here's some of the different brands that I've figured out. Here's the rookie cards that at least I think of. If you know other cards, but I'm sure there's people that know so much more information about me, please let me know and I can update this and try to give more value to people, because everyone collects basketball, baseball, football in America, but there's so many other sports out there. There's so many athletes that people don't even know about. Go out there and try to expand your PC.
Yeah, and I love how it's something that came naturally to you, and it wasn't just. But I guess that part of it is the foundations that were instilled into you of collecting vintage, right? You're like, oh, let's see how much deeper down this rabbit hole I can go down, and it's a testament to how much you truly love the hobby for what it is, right? So when growing up, with your dad in the car shop, did you ever? Did you ever collect all the the Mantle rookies, the Hank Aaron rookies, and stuff like that, or was that something that?
Yeah, so actually, no. I mean, we couldn't afford that type of stuff. A lot of people think for some reason, because I go to a lot of shows, that I'm like a hedge fund baby or whatever, like
Yeah,
has it's
yeah,
so
I get
so
that.
much money. But no, I don't have that much money. I literally just put what I make on YouTube and a little bit of my savings back into everything. And card flips also help pay for everything like that. And luckily, I have a sponsor with my slabs that helps pay for the travel costs. And I still try to keep that low.
Yeah.
Fly Spirit. I book hotels for only one night. I don't stay for the card show the entire time. Fly in Saturday morning, fly out Sunday. That way, so I'm back at home and everything like that, and try to keep costs low. If I know someone's staying in a city, I'll ask if I can sleep on a couch or anything like that to keep costs low. But I can't afford that type of stuff. I don't have that money where I can go and spend an $10,000 card. And if I do end up picking up one of those cards, it's through a trade. So like at the Dallas card show, I traded for one of my holy grail cards, which is a Walter Johnson T206. Not only that, there was the overprint, which is a very, very rare card. There's only like 30 or 40 of them graded, I believe. But I ended up going through Dallas for a whole day looking for cards that I could flip up into that card. And the dealer had a $1,500 price tag. I went through so many different boxes, spent hours trying to figure out, find some vintage cards that were undervalued, find some modern cards that are undervalued, because this dealer had both a mixture of vintage and modern. So find like your Acuñas, also finding some like Pete Rose cards, things that, a dealer can sell really fast because there's a big market for that. I spent a lot of time, ended up having close to $1,500 in capital with the cards, and ended up making that trade for that. And now I have a huge PC card. And I want to do that with the Mickey Mantle rookie or Hank Aaron rookie, but I have to work my way to that. I just can't drop $4,000 or $5,000 on a card.
Of course. A lot of it, I find the beauty of the hobby is starting out, taking what you started out with, and then using that, and then building your equity, right? And then just flipping to get those bigger cards. And it's fascinating, man. Because I started out with the most probably the junk wax version, the modern junk wax, which is, the Luka Doncic base prism, right? That's what I started off with. And then, with that, it spirals into all the bigger things that you want to build for your actual PC. Yeah. But for what it's worth, man, it doesn't come off that you're like a hedge fund baby or anything like that. It's because I don't know if you realize this, but your work ethic and your actual drive and your passion for this, it very much is evident in your videos. So I don't know who's calling you that, but trust me, bro, it doesn't come off that way. At least for me, anyways.
I appreciate it. I've had a few comments on there like, oh man, this guy must be loaded. He goes to all these different shows, or his parents pay for all this stuff. But I try to tell people like, look, man, I'm trying to be super cheap with everything. I try to spend less than $100, $200 on some of these trips.
Yeah, man. I get similar comments like that too. I'm like, bro, I live with my parents. I don't know what you're like. They're like, yo, this guy's just doing, and it's just like, at the end of the day, it's someone else from behind another screen, and it's like they don't know the life you live and all that, and it's just it's the territory that comes to posting content online, because you're making yourself very vulnerable to these types of quote unquote haters, right? So it is what it is. You just have to like to funnel it out and whatnot. It's safe to say that baseball is your favorite sport, yeah?
Yeah, easily.
Yeah, I got that vibe just because of how well versed you are in the sport. With Jeremy, he's like the hockey guy, so I had him on as like, yo, man, school me on hockey. So hey, yo, Ryan,
his hockey PC, man,
it's crazy.
He showed it to me, and I'm like, Yeah, I love how he had everything scanned. He just pulls it up. He's like, all right, so there's this card, here's this card. And I was like, oh my God. He's like, oh, but check out my baseball PC. And he's showing like a 48 Jackie Robinson. I think it was like a PSA 6 or something like that. And I'm just sitting here like, oh my God. And he just keeps showing all these other cards that are high grade vintage. And he's like, so yeah, this is my PC. And I'm just sitting here like, my God, Jeremy.
It's just that's how you know someone who's has a lot of skin in the game, right?
Yeah.
So I asked him last night to give me a crash course. A crash course on hockey. I'm gonna run it back to you now. Give me a crash course on baseball because, like you said, a lot of modern listeners right now, they're mainly into basketball and then football. There's like the most popular sports right now when it comes to, like, I guess, North America. I mean, it's safe to say that I'd probably rank it as basketball, then football, baseball, then hockey. My extent of baseball is really minimal. It's just like, okay, you have your tops and your Bowman. That's literally, I couldn't go. I know 52 tops. That's like where it started. I know there are cards that go well before that, but to the ignorant basketball junkies like myself,
Yeah.
I'm giving you the floor right now. School me. Give me your crash course, Ryan.
Let me grab a few cards, and I'm going to go through the history of cards like that. Now, I have some stuff that's locked away, so I don't have them on me, but I'm going to grab some stuff.
I'm looking forward to this, man.
All right, so here's how you can start with baseball cards. The first cards were produced in the 1800s. Don't remember the exact first set, but the first like full large sets that people started collecting were old judge cards, also known as OJs. You also had your Allen Ginter and Gypsy Quinn. So I do have one old judge card, which is a John Clarkson, one of your first 300 game winners. It's on my channel. I don't have the image on top of here right now, so sorry for the editing with that one, but
it's all good.
Start back there, and this was like a massive set. It was a 5-year run, and it started printing out based on the different leagues and then also minor leagues. There's a full video which has an interview with an old judge dealer from the Houston TriStar show. So check that out. This guy knows so much more than I do, and his collection is absolutely insane. You'll see it on the video if you watch that. But that's like the first full sets that people started really, really collecting, diving deep into. And it's weird because there's some cards that are a one of a kind. They're the only ones out there available. And there's also cards that there's 40 or 50 available that have been graded. So it really depends on what you want. There's so many cards in that set. And what it was, they're old photographs put onto like card stock. So that's why if you look at different old judge cards, some of them fade, other ones don't. And the thing that kind of sucks about these cards, because they're heavy, a lot of people would skim off the backs or also trim the cards around to put them into binders, because people in 1800s had no idea these cards would be worth anything. Yeah. They're all advertisement cards. So a lot of these cards out there will be trimmed. And I know there's a very big like antic, oh, I don't want trim cards, but you're talking about something in the 1800s. So there's a few different companies like that. They produced cards, I think, until like around 1890. And all these companies started going together and built out the American Tobacco Company. So after the American Tobacco Company was formed, they had this first set, and you guys are very familiar with this. You've seen the vintage cards. This is the set that has the Honda Swagner. So this set there's like 20 or so different backs on the set as well, depending on what factory that these cards were produced in. You have some common backs like here, like the Piedmont, but there's also rare backs as well. Like you can get some of the cycle backs and different things like that based on it. Like the one Walter Johnson I had was a 649 overprint. It's a medium rarity back, but again, medium rarity, there's only like 40 or 50 cards out there. Some of the rare backs only have like 10 or 12 that are graded or less. So do your research on that, but there's so many different backs, and sometimes the backs are more collectible than the player on front just because of how rare a back is. And there's people that collect the cards just for the backs themselves, which is really kind of cool with that. Right after that, then you had the T205s right here. Nice. Another classic set, the gold bordered cards as well. You can find great players in here like Christy Mathewson, Ty Cobb, Walter Johnson, and much more. It's also kind of interesting. People don't know that they had a tribute card to Addie Joss. Addie Joss was one of the really great pitchers in there, but he died really, really long. I think he died at the age of 30, and he was on track to be a Hall of Famer. He was up there with like Cy Young, Walter Johnson, Christy Mathewson, but tragedy struck. And in this set, they had a tribute card to him, which is kind of cool. But one thing to note as well, if you're going to baseball, so this is a T206, and this is a T205. The naming convention is based off the standard catalog. The T205s came after the T206. This is just how they were cataloged as cards in general. So the numbers here, like the 05s, 06, it's not depending on the year, just depending on how they were cataloged. There's not a lot of research back then. I think it was produced in, let me just look up real quick the year. American Card Catalog. Don't know on top of my head. American Card Catalog. So this American Card Catalog was produced 1939. And again, no internet. So people really didn't know exactly when things were printed out. And this is just like catalog of all the different sets. Now, after that, there's a few other things that are printed out. Like this is a Harrington, but most of the stuff after this was kind of very low pop. Then 1933, there was a bunch of different sets. So right here, I have two different ones that started getting produced. First, you had the Gaudis. And Gaudi had a 2-year release, 33, 34, that looked similar, but they also had other designs like 35, which had 4 players in one, and also the 38s, which were the cartoons. They had some other black and white ones, but these were the most famous ones. Also that same year, they had DeLongs. They also had Tattoo Orbit. And also, this was a 3-year release as well. This is called Diamond Stars from 1933 to 35. Really beautiful cards, but just aren't as valued as much as a Gaudi. You can kind of see both of them, tons of color with that. But there's a lot of different sets that were produced now in 1933, and production started going really high again. People were really, really interested in baseball cards. And in 1939, actually Bowman, which used the name of Play Ball, started creating their stuff. And I did have a Play Ball. Yeah, so this is a 1940. It's not the 39, but this is a 1940 Play Ball. So this is technically the second year of Bowman. The first year was in 39. Again, just know this a little bit for the future. Then World War II strikes, and card production is done because they needed all the resources for the war. So nothing was going on with that until now, 1948, when you have Bowman and Leaf now entering in the hobby. So 48, they have the small Bowman minis, and then also they had the Leaf cards, which I don't have any in front of me, unfortunately. And Leaf ended up doing a 2-year print run. So what's interesting about Leaf is some of the cards in the back will say copyright 1948. Some will say copyright 1949. Beckett, when they grade cards for Leaf, they'll say it was a 1949 Leaf. PSA, when they grade, they say 1948. So there's still a lot of dialogue going back and forth whether these cards were printed in 1948 or 49, because some of the cards will say after the season what ended up happening to someone. Some of them will be like mid-season. So it's kind of weird with that. No one really knows. But that also affects some of the rookie cards because, like Jackie Robinson has a 1949 Bowman, but he also has the 48, 49 Leaf. So some people don't consider the 49 Bowman Jackie's true rookie, but others do because Leaf was a 2-year print run. So there's a lot of arguments online and a lot of confusion with that because of the players that are in Leaf. Same with like Satchel Paige. Satchel Paige has a card in 49 Bowman, but he also has a Leaf. So some people are like, well, what's his real rookie card? Me personally, I consider both of them. You also have someone like Stan Musial who has a 48 Bowman, but also the 48, 49 Leaf. What's the rookie card? I look at it both. So Leaf was there for 2 years. They also got into boxing cards as well. They also got into football cards, but they didn't really do much after that. And it was mainly Bowman until 1951. So most people think the 52 Topps is the first year Topps was produced. They produced Magic cards in 48 and 49. PSA will say 1948. Topps' own website says 1949. So kind of interesting with that one. Not really sure what the story is on that. But their first baseball card set that they had in 51, the red and blue backs. So this was a game that they had right here. This is the Duke Snyder. Really, really cool card. And they started producing these. Also 1951, people don't know, Topps created their only boxing set, the Topps Ringside Boxing. And in this set, they had a very famous rookie card of Rocky. So this is Rocky was an Italian fighter and was the name inspiration behind the Rocky boxing series. Rocky actually never lost one fight. It was a very, very popular Italian American. So for me personally, I think that's one of those cards that's going to go up over time as people start learning about the history. I do have one of the Rocky rookies, but really, really cool history behind it because Topps was also producing boxing cards as well as baseball cards in 1951. And that boxing set was pretty much that full first set before the 52s. Obviously, now you're talking about 1952, the Topps baseball cards, their first technically full set. I don't really consider these as a full set. It's more of a game, but they had the full set over here. And at this time now, it was Topps versus Bowman. There's a bitter rivalry. And I have a full video on talking about that, but Topps and Bowman were fighting over player contracts. They're suing each other, and they're suing each other also over selling gums with cards. So when Topps ended up doing 51, they put taffy in the cards so they didn't have to go against Bowman, which I don't have a 51 or 52 Bowman over here, over a fear of a lawsuit. So Topps started with taffy, and then Bowman started with gum, and then 52 Topps started putting gum in there. And that really started the rivalry between the two different companies. They started going to court. They started suing each other. Bowman ended up being acquired a few different times, and Topps ended up acquiring Bowman also in 1955 and shut down the brand. No more. And that ended that rivalry. And Topps now pretty much had a monopoly all throughout the 60s. I'll just throw a nice 60s card right here. This Whitey Ford. That's an SGC8. Beautiful card. But they had a rivalry for such a long time, and now Topps had no competition. And that's pretty much until Donruss came around. Donruss started printing cards in the 1980s. And then you started seeing other players come in and start competing with Topps as well. And then as soon as everyone started competing with Topps, then you have the junk wax era. So I'll just kind of show like the start of the junk wax era. This is a 1986 Barry Bonds rookie card. So junk wax era, everyone starts mass producing and everything like that. You have a ton of players now out there. Then into the 90s, late 90s, production levels started going down a lot less. You had different brands like Bowman's Best, which were now out there that had chrome type finishes on there. Now you had Topps Chrome in 1996. You also had Topps Finest in 93, which was technically the first chrome brand. And people really, really collect the finest refractors because these are the first refractors that were ever produced in the hobby. Really, really expensive cards, by the way. And in the 2000s, production kind of stayed low because the hobby wasn't in a great state. People weren't out there and excited about baseball cards. People got burned in the 90s. I mean, we had things like the Jose Canseco rookie card that went up to $50 or $100 alone. We're talking about a junk wax era card like this, and it was $100 raw back then. So it's like Luka and Trae Young all over again with all that, because people were spending $100, $200 on prospects who played a few years when you can get guaranteed lock Hall of Famers or vintage cards for the same price. It makes no sense. That's a more stable investment. These guys have to be top 10, top 15 players all the time. What's the odds that 3 or 4 players in 1 year are going to be a top 10 player of all time? It's not there. I don't get me wrong. I think prospecting is fun and there's opportunities to make there. But when every single card is worth more than Hall of Famers just coming out of the gate, you have to be careful with that. Then we go into late 2000s, 2010s, and I know now we get in more rampant production, more autographs, everything like that. I like to say around like 2017, 2018, everything started skyrocketing, print runs and everything like that. And that's kind of where we're at in the hobby right now. I mean, now you have Panini that's producing cards that are unlicensed like this. And then you have Topps that is producing cards. Should have the Topps card over here. Topps producing cards like this. So that's where we're at with the hobby.
That was the most in-depth crash course that I've ever experienced. I've noticed that a lot of the, all the fake slab controversy that's come out like recently, it's all been the older slabs because I feel like they're easier to fake.
They are.
I haven't seen, I don't know about you. I haven't seen anyone try to fake the Lighthouse slab because I feel like it's super, really, eh?
There was a Jordan 7 Lighthouse slab that was fake that was going throughout Twitter and Facebook the other day. Now, the thing about it with the Lighthouse slab, I know it's hard to show on video, but if you just show it in the light, I mean, it reflects and everything like that. Also, you look at the foil on it, there's the 2 different colors, everything like that. Someone just printed it across rather than having this effect on it. So I know over time that these are going to get better fakes. But right now you have that. Also, you have kind of like the PSA and the background. It's kind of like a watermark if you just look up into the light. So that's very hard to produce as well. One of the things I noticed also on some of the new generation of fakes is the QR code. The fakes had them centered aligned on the back. The real ones are left aligned. So you can take a look at this over here and how it is over there to the left
Oh, yep,
The
true.
opposite on here. But the person who faked it had it in the dead center with that. There's also some more security details on the back. I have it in this case, so we can take it out. So you can see also really close up here, just how it's printed out and everything like that.
Yep.
Also, one things that people do, at least with older slabs, is they try to replace the label in here. So they'll use a real case, but have a fake label. So one things that you can do is if you put on your flashlight, you can actually look through it and see if there's a second label. So on here, you can see the flashlight doesn't go through it. I mean, you can see in the back a little bit right here, but you can make sure that there isn't a second label in there because people try to replace that in there and try to have a second one. So you get fooled with a higher grade. But there was a fake 7 Jordan that was floating throughout Twitter that had a fake label and everything like that. And the reason why I knew it was fake right away is they didn't have the ghost in the aisle on the Jordan. Really easy tell sign. One of the easiest things to look up. The card was really dark and also didn't have the ghost. There's some really good fakes of the Jordan out there that the only difference I've seen is pretty much the dark background. I mean, even looking under a loop, the printing is correct and everything. So you have to be very careful with that. I'm sure the card stock was a little bit different as well. But there's, like I said, I did like 23 different ways to spot it. So there's like probably 5, 6, or even more fakes out there. Just make sure you're very familiar with that card. And I'd recommend never buying that card raw. Like,
oh yeah.
If someone tries to offer it to you, say, look, we'll pay for grading. If it comes back real, I'll buy it for you then. If not, I'm not interested because there's too many fakes of that out there.
Yeah, I had someone in my YouTube comments the other day. He was just like, "Oh, all I do is find good deals on iconic cards like the 86 Fleer. I just find them raw on eBay." I'm like, okay, if you find an 86 Fleer Jordan raw for under $100, you're buying a fake. Like, come on, it's so obvious, right? But
the thing that's scary too, it's not just the Jordans as well. Like the other Hall of Famers in there that they're making fakes of too.
All the big iconic cards, yeah.
Yep.
Oh man, I love how we got this is the great thing about Ryan, guys. You ask for a crash course on baseball, he gives you a crash course on fakes too. It's just perfect, man. This guy always over delivers, man.
Try to give it a little value. I know this is gonna be like an hour plus. So
oh no, I love it. It's great for the algorithm,
It is though.
Yeah, facts. Okay, so I'm gonna put you on the spot one more time, and based off of that crash course, who would you put on your baseball card Mount Rushmore in terms of like these are the 4 cards that define the history of baseball cards as well as the history of baseball?
All right, so the 4 cards that I would put on here for my Mount Rushmore, the first one is the 1952 Mickey Mantle. Although it's not my favorite card, a lot of people in the hobby absolutely love it. There's a 9 that recently sold for $5 million itself. And it was kind of like the birth of Topps. When you think of Topps cards themselves and baseball cards, you think of the Mickey Mantle. And that's why this card is so iconic. Number 2 on here, I'm going to put the Babe Ruth rookie card from 1916. You're talking about the greatest baseball player of all time. And the fact that people, even that don't watch baseball, know who Babe Ruth is, it has to be on the Mount Rushmore. And we saw how much hype his pre-rookie card with Baltimore went for recently with collectibles. So that definitely has to be on there. The 1916, again, this is a different card than collectibles sold, but that is his true rookie card with that. The next one I'm going to put in here is a little bit of a twist. Most people don't realize about this card. It's a 1933/34 Nap Lajoie. And I'm sorry if I mispronounce this. It's a French name. I messed up a few times. Anyways, this card, what makes it special is in the Gaudi set, it was in 1933's Gaudi set, there was missing 1 card, and it was the Naps card. So the only way that you could get this card is by writing into Gaudi and asking for that card, because there's set collectors out then. And again, we're talking about Great Depression, 1930s. So it was very, very difficult to collect all these cards themselves. And Gaudi ended up sending out the Nap. Now, what makes the Nap interesting, it has a 34 Gaudi front, but a 33 Gaudi back. And it was technically printed out in 34, but it belongs in the 33 set. So it's kind of the continuation between the 2 different sets. And there's a lot of similarities between the 33 and 34 Gaudis. If you look at the design and printing, that could be another video talking about that itself. There's so much history behind it. Because of this iconic card, because of the iconic set, with the Gaudi being one of the big 3 sets out there, along with the T206, the 52 Topps, and again, 33 Gaudi, that is going on my list with that one. And lastly, the Hannes Wagner. Although it's not his most rare card, the Hannes Wagner T206 has the history behind it. Everyone talks about it just because of it being printed or being pulled from printing, and also one of his most famous cards. Interesting enough, though, his true rookie card was printed out earlier in the 1900s, has a lower pop report, and is worth less than the T206 Hannes Wagner. So if you have that type of money, I'd say go after the true rookie card instead of the T206, because it actually should be worth more, in my personal opinion.
I love your approach to it, how you kept it strictly vintage and pre-war. I was for whatever reason, I was fully expecting you to add the 89 Upper Deck Griffey in there, just because it's, you know, the arguably the most popular card of all time. Highest PSA pop count, I believe.
Yeah, and you know what the interesting thing about that card as well, people don't talk about. I don't know if this is 100% true, but apparently Upper Deck printed it after 89 as well. So there's copies of it. I know people are talking about some of the soccer cards now that have been being printed out after the set's been out there. Yeah. Same thing happened with Griffey back in 89.
Oh, shoot. That would definitely contribute to why
it was pop reports.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. No, I like how you kept it all vintage and pre-war. Yeah, the other one I would have expected, if you were to cover, you know, all eras, probably the 2011 Topps update Mike Trout.
Yeah, I think there could be a case made for two different Mount Rushmores, because I mean, we're talking about let's say 1860s, 1870s were the first cards. I mean, it's hard when you have 150 years of collecting pretty much out there.
Right. Okay, fair. How I was actually thinking about that as you were going through it. I was like, man, there's so much, so many years, such a long lineage of baseball cards. So, okay, I'll put you on the spot. Now I'll actually put you on the spot one more time. If you made a modern Mount Rushmore, so basically anything from what's a good year?
We'll say 80.
Yeah, sure.
A lot of people say.
Yeah, from 1980 on.
All right. So we're going to definitely put the Griffey on there, just because everyone always submits the card. It's very iconic. Next card we're going to put on there is the 2011 Trout. Next one I'm also going to put out here is the 1991 Desert Storm Chipper Jones. That card's widely faked, but also it's one of the most iconic parallel cards. I mean, this was before everyone started chasing the golds, the black cards, or anything else that's numbered. I mean, this card was only produced for soldiers in the Middle East, and it was a very, very scarce card. We talk about Chipper Jones, one of the most popular players for the Braves, also a Hall of Famer, a great player overall. And then also I'm going to put a card that's 1 year before that. I guess we pretty much did all 90s stuff, but the Frank Thomas no name on the front. The Topps recently did a Luis Robert super short print with the no name as well, just to talk about it. And it's just such an iconic card. When you think of card printing eras, I think the first one that comes to my mind is that Frank Thomas no name variation, because of the era and how popular it was back then.
Nice, man. That's a good list.
What would you put as your other ones?
See, I don't know enough about baseball to make a list. That would be credible. But though the Griffey and the Trout were the two off in terms of modern anyway. If I were to do an all-encompassing one, I feel like my easy answer would have been the T206, the 52 Mantle, and then the 89 Griffey and 2011 Trout. That's my like easy answer without, you know, digging really deep into the history of everything. So, you know, keeping it minimal, I guess, so to speak. But
that's all right. I mean, you click basketball mainly.
Yeah, mainly a basketball guy. So that would be a Mount Rushmore.
Different.
Yeah, that would be one I could sit down and really let marinate and think about.
Well, let's see it. Probably the 86 Jordan has to be on there.
Oh,
absolutely.
Oh, you're putting me on this. Oh, you're putting.
Yeah, I'm going to put you on the spot this time.
Oh, so, he turned the tables on me. All right.
So 86 Jordan has to be there. I'm going to guess you're going to put the Wilt Chamberlain, the Bill Russell, but who's going to be that fourth one? But I'm kind of curious what your four are.
Oh, I have to put the 1980 Topps Bird Magic Julius Erving. That has to be on there. The George Mikan for sure.
That's why I wasn't sure for my fourth one. I was gonna put Mikan or the triple one. I just couldn't know which one.
Yeah, because I feel like you have to pick between either Wilt and Bill Russell for that last spot. In terms of classic older cards, modern is a different story. Oh, that's tough. I definitely. It's harder with basketball because you have all the exquisite and the national treasures RPAs. So it's like, do you include that? You could really
Let's say base. Let's say base type stuff.
Stick with base. Okay, yeah. Fair. 2003 Topps Chrome LeBron for sure.
Yep.
96 Chrome Kobe Bryant. First year Topps Chrome. So that's another easy one. I want to say either, I don't know which one I'd pick, either Shaq's 1992 Topps or his 1992 Upper Deck. I don't know which one would be considered more iconic because both are very iconic in their own right. And I hate to do it. I really, really hate to do it. But Luka? I gotta put the base Luka Prism on because for a lot of people, myself included, that was like their gateway back into the hobby, and that's arguably what started this whole new wave or new era of collectors, so to speak. So
it's the Griffey for basketball.
Very, very much so, in so many different ways. Oh man, the difference is that I've noticed that when I was looking on Card Ladder, shameless plug, I'm not affiliated yet with them. I'm waiting till my subscriber base gets to a decent amount. But I saw that the 89 Griffey has somewhat sustained its value over time despite the ridiculously high pop, which is it blows my mind. It blows my mind. While it's too early to say if the Prism based Luka will have the same effect, just because it's still very much early on his career. But it's astounding seeing the nosedive base Prism has taken, which I've one of my friends put it best. If you were one of those people who were buying like 100 base Prism Lucas to sit on, this is your rude awakening. This is your wake up call right here. And I was like, that was not a good idea.
Yeah, with that, I just see so many similarities between them just thinking about it. What the thing is interesting too about the 89 Upper Deck, Griffey wasn't even the best rookie in that set. And the best rookie actually was Randy Johnson.
Yeah.
So Randy Johnson's a pitcher, but if you look at all his stats and advanced stats and even WAR, he's leagues ahead of King Griffey Jr. Just shows you how popular of a player Griffey was and how unpopular for some reason Randy Johnson was. And Randy Johnson did nothing wrong. Like, he was a very clean player, never took steroids, got a bunch of strikeouts. In fact, he does photography now for bands, which is kind of cool.
Oh, sweet.
His logo for the photography is the upside down bird, which is hilarious if you think about it, because of this bird scene where he hit the bird pitching. If you guys haven't seen that, you got to check it out. It's incredible. You would never expect this to happen in a baseball game, but I think that's truly, like, we're talking about like underrated cards and everything like that. For some reason, the Randy Johnson rookie gets no respect. If you can pick up a 9 probably for like $15 or $20, look at a 9, what a Griffey is. I don't even know what a Griffey 9 is anymore, but it's through the roof. And you're talking about a player that's way better, and it's only a $20 card. It makes no sense to me. I want to talk about a little bit of people going into the hobby, and then like if they went at the height and what either content creators can do or what they can do to help relieve that, because people are out thousands of dollars, especially if they bought back in February or March or at the very peak. And now look at their stuff. I mean, look at how much the Michael Jordans went down. Once it was at $750,000 and now it's down to 180. Now, someone spending $750,000 on a Jordan, they obviously have a lot of money. They're not, it's a big loss, but they're going to be like, oh, I'm just going to hold on this card. I'm not going to sell it for this much of a loss, whatever. But your average collector, someone, let's say, bought a card for $500 and it's now worth $100, or bought a card for $1,000, now $200, doesn't have that disposable income.
Yeah.
Are they now going to quit the hobby? Are they going to now pivot to something else? Or what's the whole situation with that? And I feel like that could be another talking point for either people in like the comments or just in general.
Absolutely.
what can content creators do, or what can other people do to help out these people? Because if you lose a lot of money in the hobby, you're not going to be interested anymore, and you might pivot to something else because you're like, oh, I lost all this money, keep going. Some people always say the gambler's addiction. Oh, I lost, I'm going to win this next one and continue to fight it. And other people are like, whatever, I'm not going to spend as much money anymore. So kind of interesting on that side of things.
And that's why I find content like yours, and to an extent mine, I guess, is that the informational content about the hobby is very beneficial, because I've always been a firm advocate as like, yo, stop ripping wax, stop entering breaks and rises, like just don't do it. And then if you want to buy something to hold long term, make sure you know what you're getting into. Like what we were talking about before, if you're sitting on 100 base Lucas, that's probably, again, I don't like to tell anyone how to spend their money, to each their own. But if you're going to be spending a large amounts to hold on some cardboard, maybe not base Prism. I don't know. Not the best idea, but, yeah, it's crazy seeing just how much of a nosedive the 86 Fleer Jordan has taken. But I'm a firm believer, I don't know about you, that the person or whoever purchased it for $750, I feel like it was one of those hedge fund groups, or just because it was around that time that all of these big money people were entering the hobby, and they started to see it as an alternative asset class, right? So to them, their large portfolios worth like millions and billions of dollars, that 750 that they put into the Jordan, which is, by hobby, in the perspective of the hobby, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money to be putting into one card. To them, that's like pennies to them. So if it sees it goes down, they don't get hurt completely. While that's the problem with people are, quote unquote, I always hate to use the word investing when it comes to sports cards, but when people are investing into these cards, I hate to see that people, it sets their expectations too high, where it's like, oh wow, this card can go 10x in like a month. It's like, it's not how it works.
It's a lot like penny stocks. I mean, with the new stuff, because you look at your penny stocks, or even like your crap coins. I know there's another name for it with crypto, and how it can go from like a penny to overnight to like 50 cents Doge all over again, right?
Oh my goodness.
I mean, at some point with certain cards, you have to take your money and just walk away. Sure, there's probably more meat on the bone if you wait a little bit, but there's so much risk on this stuff. Yeah. I mean, if you look at vintage, it's stable, just goes up a little bit over time. And high grade stuff goes like this. But I mean, how many 9s and 10s are you going to get of like 60s cards or 70s cards, or like especially iconic cards in general? It's just not out there. So you're going to buy it, pay a buyer's premium. It's like one thing I don't think there's a lot of people talking about. I think I want to make this into a video one day.
Yeah.
It's like vintage high grade is like the equivalent of like refractors nowadays. I mean, if you look at like the PSA 10 of, let's say, like a 1975 George Brett, there's probably less than 50 of those out there. That'd be like the equivalent of getting like a George Brett today, or let's say, for example, let's say another modern player like a Devers, like numbered to 50. That's like kind of the equivalent of that, because the pop on those are about the same. So I know some old people are like, they collect vintage cards, don't want to get into new stuff because they see the market, how volatile it is and how low it is. There's also new people that don't want to get into vintage because they're like, oh, this is printed a long time ago, I don't know who these players are, and it doesn't really interest me, because there's also some cards that have higher pop reports. But I look at it with the PSA grade is kind of like numbered cards. If you get a PSA 9 or a 10, it's kind of like getting a card numbered to 50 or 25 or 100, because it's so limited.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are setting themselves up with unrealistic expectations, because they're seeing all the 10x returns and everything like that. And it's like what you said, with all the vintage, that's what sustained the most value over time. It hasn't been like, the 10x you see in a couple months. No. But it stayed like super steady, just like any traditional stock. I think that's the problem with a lot of the new blood entering. They're like, I can 10x this card in like a month or two. Okay, sign me up. And then that's what leads to all the people buying a base prism of
Yep.
Mefeku Kabengele or whoever. Just
I
oh
think the
my
other
god.
thing too is no one talks about their losses. Everyone talks about, oh, I made all this money, I
No
made all this
wins,
money,
yeah.
I made this money. Right? If you look at what everyone posts online, you'd think they're like undefeated, like they're the best
A
pickers out
flex,
there.
yeah.
But you're gonna take L's. Like you're gonna buy a card for $1,000, it goes down to $750, and you're like, I lost it, but no one's posting that on social media. I
No.
lost $200 or I lost $300. No one sees the other side of it. No one sees the research, how many hours people sometimes put in looking at the stats, looking at comparable players, projecting models to figure out if this player is actually can do well or not. Um, I know some people just blindly invest. At least on my perspective, I like looking at advanced stats before I put money into a player, especially on that, unless I'm just flipping it because I know it's undervalued. But there's a lot more to it than just, oh, I bought this card and I 10x'd it in a month. I made all this money. It's not like that.
You bring up a really good point on how on social media no one ever posts their losses, because this could dive deep into a whole nother conversation about, at the end of the day, social media is a flex, right?
It is.
People use Instagram or Facebook or whatever they want to curate the best version of themselves that they want to put out there. No one's going to post their struggles and stuff because people don't find that interesting. People like to relish in the glory of all their achievements and stuff. And it's almost not even almost, it's super artificial, right? Because you're nitpicking parts of your life, parts of what goes on to project to everyone else to come off as the illusion of like, oh, all I do is take dubs, right?
It just, yeah, it's unsustainable. I mean, people look at like the influencers, and this goes all the way back to like CoffeeZilla and God, what's the other guy? Spencer Cornelia, how they tear apart all these fake entrepreneurs online and
Yeah.
show like what goes behind them. I feel like the hobby's kind of the same way. There's a lot of people out there that flex all this stuff and either break even or lose money and just do that type of stuff as well. And no one ever talks about it. I mean, I try to be transparent if I lose money on things. I mean, in
Absolutely.
the last video, you saw Steven ended up selling the Babe Ruth card. He paid $10,000 pretty much in trade a few months ago, but he bought it at the high. And
Mhm.
you wouldn't really expect the Babe Ruth galaxy to go down, but just where the market was at, everything
Yeah.
started crashing. So he cashed out at $8,000, took a $2,000 loss. Just transparency. I think there's a lot of lack of transparency in the hobby, and I think if more people even showed like, look, you have to take some losses to take wins. I mean, he sold that card for 8,000, but then he bought a 1887 Cap Anson for $4,000. That was a grade of a 4. What's easier to replace, the Ruth or the Cap Anson? No, you have we both have limited funds that don't have like unlimited bankrolls, so you have to take some losses here to get other wins. And I think that could help with a lot of the people. Just show if you lost some money, if you invested in a wrong player. I think Sports Card Investor invested in one of the balls, I think, and talked about it. And like, oh, it's like, oh, I lost
Lonzo Ball, baby.
Lonzo Ball. So he talked about how he invested heavily in Lonzo Ball and lost money with it, right? It's transparency. I think
Yep.
a lot of other people should just go and talk about their investments. I mean, I'll say here, one of my big investments I thought was going to do extremely well was Miguel Sano for the Minnesota Twins. So back in the early 2010s, I was investing in players that were power because baseball card hobby didn't care about WAR, didn't care about a lot of advanced stats. It was all
Flashy.
about the long
Yeah.
ball, right? You
Mhm.
had people like Barry Bonds that hit 73
Yep.
home runs. You had Mantle, 500 home run king, or not home run king, but 500 plus home runs. You had Willie Mays. Like everyone loved the home run hitters. So
Mhm.
what I was prospecting on is these players that would hit moonshot home runs. Now I invested heavily in Mike Stanton, and his investment was doing really good. And I started finding another player named Miguel Sano, and it looked like it would be another Stanton. If you looked at his home runs, they were line drive home runs. He was a bigger guy, kind of had like the big poppy body. And I was like, all right, he's going to play for the Minnesota Twins. Big Poppy also started Minnesota Twins. I'm going to try investing a little bit in Sano. And Sano started hitting home runs. But the only problem is he just can't hit for average. So
Mhm.
I did horrible on the investment. He made the All-Star game once. I should have sold all my stuff then. But because now his autographs are like $2-3, he's batting under 200. But that's the thing about it. You're going to take some losses. I mean, you're going to get some wins. You're going to get some losses. You're not going to be perfect. No one out here is perfect at investing.
Absolutely not. I remember watching that video. I think right before we hopped on actually. And yeah, Steven was talking about the L's he took, and I was just like, that's dope because so many people like to flex their wins, but he was just like, yeah, I took a loss on this, and I was like, That's great, because transparency in the hobby, I feel, is one of the most important things for the success of it long term. Because if everyone's just posting up all of their victories, it's going to set up, like what we mentioned earlier, it's going to set up unrealistic expectations for those who are entering now. They're like, oh wow, I can do this, I can do that, but they don't realize, like, I forget who said it, but they said sports cards is very much a long-term game, in terms of you can't come in if you really want to be in it, you can't be in it for those like short-term flips. Yes, they're good for making adding to your bankroll and everything, but it shouldn't be your overall primary focus.
Yeah, and a lot of those people actually ended up leaving the hobby too.
Yep.
So the funny thing, I mean, I've been going to shows forever, but about last year and even some of this year, there used to be kids probably my age or so that always have the backpacks on, the slides and basketball shorts. But no, here's the thing. They'll drop like 20 or 30 grand on the table and buy up all the Lucas or Jordan cards from dealers to say, like, here's 10 grand, give me all your Lucas and Jordans. They're just like walking around. And they're from the sneaker culture, obviously. But the thing is, I don't see those guys going around anymore dropping 10, 15 grand on just the Lucas or Michael Jordans. Now, there are people that are dropping a lot of money on cards, like $15,000, $20,000, don't get me wrong, but it's not on the Lucas or Jordans. I'm seeing a lot more people swing on the mantles. I saw someone at the Houston show. I put him in the video. He spent, I think, like $60,000 on a mantle for great buy. Like, that was awesome. I saw the card. But you don't see those kids anymore my age going around buying up all the Lucas.
No. Yeah, I've noticed that in terms of the progression of the hobby for the last like year or so, a lot of the new collectors are getting a lot smarter. They're realizing, and it shows in like the market trends, right? All of the base prism is going down, and all of like the truly rare stuff, the rare inserts of the 90s and like those the really sought after parallels, those are the ones that have been consistent in value. A great example of that is for basketball is Kobe Bryant. All of his base rookie cards after his Hall of Fame induction, they just absolutely tanked. But all of his like super rare one of ones and like the really scarce autographs, they're staying course. And I think I wouldn't, a lot of people like this use the terms like, oh, the bubble's bursting or whatnot. And it's like, no, it's just the market is correcting. People are realizing where they should really be putting their money.
Yeah, and I agree with that. But one other thing I think the market's going to correct at soon, and a lot of people don't realize this, is people are only focused on low pop. They're like, oh, this is so low pop, I need to buy this card. Low pop, low pop. But there's horrible brands out there, very low end brands like Score, and people will still hype it up. Oh, this is a low pop Score card. Bro, it's Score. It's literally $1 pack. Yeah. Like no one wants a Score card, and people are still hyping that stuff up because no one's grading those Score cards, right? And you're talking about the cheapest of the cheapest product, or they'll be like opening day baseball for Topps. They're like, oh, this is low pop. Let's get it. And let's hype this card up. But there has to be like a balance between the low pop, the brand, the type of card, in the player. I mean, I could grade a random card. I mean, I have commons over here. I look at the cards and test out for like cutting them and different things like that. I'd say, for example, I have let me just grab one right here. Let's say I have this Matt Ryan 2009 Upper Deck football card, right? It's a second year card. How many of these have been graded? Probably like less than 100. I get this graded. Guys, this is a low pop card. There's less than 100 out there, right? If it gets back at 10, there's probably 10 of these guys. This is a second year Matt Ryan Upper Deck card. This is a pop 5. I'm telling you, this is the next investment card. Like, you need to go out there and do your research on the card. Just because it's low pop doesn't mean it's a good card.
That is like gospel if I've ever heard it. And you see it so much on eBay listings and people who are trying to sell their sell their junk. It's like, yo, it's a pop 1, or oh man, I had this conversation with some of my hobby friends. They're like, the best is this could be a whole nother video. And actually, it was one of the, it's like the eBay listings that it's like eBay one of ones. Or people who put it's a pop 1 no, what was it? But one of the worst ones I saw was, I forget who the player was, but they came from Zion's draft class, and they literally put in the
Next Zion.
title Zion Williamson draft class. I'm like, are you kidding me? And then, like that's another thing. The people who they go so extra when it comes to making their cards so like, oh, he came from Zion's draft class. That must mean this card is going to be valuable because the set's going to be valuable because Zion's in it. I'm like
the next ones too. So I was thinking, they'll have a card like this. They'll have like a corner that's bent. They'll be like PSA 10 question mark.
Oh my God. The PSA 10 question mark. Oh, it grinds my gears. Or PSA ready. Like,
yeah.
It's just no. Great. I'm sure you've seen the ones where it's like a really like super off-centered, a super off-centered card, or like it's in just like brutal condition, like the factory defects, or it's like, or again, it's another eBay one of one. It's like, oh, there's no other card like this. In terms of basketball, a great example is for this year's Prism. It was Rodney Hood was the player. They forgot to it was like a factory defect where his is the one card where they forgot to print the Prism border. So he has the one card in the entire set, his base card where there's no Prism border, and people are listing it on eBay where it's like, oh, the
rare
special
variation.
Yes, the super rare variation. I'm like, guys, what?
Yes, I have this recent Chase Kaufman 2009. It has wrinkles, guaranteed to get on PSA 1 or 2. This is a pop one, guys. I'm telling you to invest.
Oh my God, it's just it blows my mind how the lengths people will go, but it's
hilarious.
It's so funny. It's so funny because people are getting more creative with some of these, and it's oh man, the one I don't know if you ever I don't know if you ever seen it. It was a Canadian seller who was doing it, and I forget what the acronym is off the top of my head, but he marked up certain cards because they were the first one recorded in the BGS pop. So it's like first, I think I forget. Graded. Yeah, first one graded, and he was just like he marked. So it was I'm pretty sure it was a Luka. It was a Luka card, like a Luka base hoops or something like that. And I remember seeing the price of it. I'm like, wait, why is this so expensive? Then he's like, oh, it's the first one graded. These are going to be considered like super, super rare. Like down, I'm like.
But we see that too. Like when the first LaMelo balls from PSA came back, the price on them were crazy. People will just buy the first card, whatever that comes out, and just store it away for some reason. I don't understand that. That card's still going to exist in a few months. People are going to get theirs back from PSA. Obviously, as more come back, price goes down. It's not like you're getting a one of a kind card or something that's like a pop 20 or pop 30 where you might not see it again, but you're talking about a base LaMelo ball hoops rookie, and those are going for what, a couple $100 or something like that.
And I feel like a lot of that is people preying on FOMO, because that's the thing. These cards that come out, people like that are, you know, super mass printed, but because they're the first one graded, people want them. It happened with the LaMelo hoops, and it's happening with this base Prism where they started off so high and it's just a race to the bottom. So I'll never understand why people buy them knowing that, this isn't rare at all. I don't know. I don't get why you're buying it for so high. That's my mentality whenever something I see that I like pops up on eBay. I always wait like at least a month or so before, prices come down to earth.
Oh, absolutely. It's even with like the products, the boxes, and people buy them for, let's say, $20 at Target and put them online for like $300. It's like, are you kidding me? People buy it.
It's the flipper culture, man. And I think a lot of it too, though, and I've had discussions of this with others of how something along the lines of those initial cards, for whatever reason, people think they grade better because it's like, oh, they're truly like pack fresh, so to speak. But I don't know if you saw that Black Shimmer LeBron from this year's Prism. It was a 101, but it came back, graded a 7.5.
Like that.
Yeah. So it's like, Panini quality control isn't the best. So you can't always assume that, just because it came into one of those, it was like pack fresh, so to speak. Just because it's pack fresh doesn't mean it's, quote unquote PSA 10 question mark, right?
No, I agree with that. It makes me nervous. I want to eventually get my CJ Abrams 101 authenticated and graded and slabbed and everything like that, especially if he becomes number one prospect. And I'm just like, am I gonna get this graded or save it raw? Because that's a whole nother conversation about grading one of ones. There's so many people that say grade it just to get it slabbed because people will only buy slab cards. There's also the people that say don't grade a one of one because it's the only one out there. It's only gonna hurt the value. And for me, I'm kind of in the middle. Like if it looks nice, just get it graded. I mean, if it comes back an 8 or 9, it's the only one. Like, are you gonna really complain at the end of the day? But also, I see it where someone might value it higher because they think it might grade a 9 or a 10.
Yeah.
But then again, there's people that only buy slab cards. They won't buy a raw one of one. Makes no sense to me. But there's buyers out there like that. So a one of one is kind of that weird thing. And then like if card's number to 5, people are like, oh, you definitely should grade it because then it'll be a pop 1. Isn't that what a 101 is?
Yeah.
I like it's an interesting conversation. What's going to end up happening with that? I think the hobby will end up deciding probably in a year or two, just because I know there's a lot more one of ones now than there was even 5 years ago or 10 years ago. If you look at all these different brands, right? Everyone knew about the Superfractor one of one. Cool. Bowman Chrome had the Superfractor. Topps Chrome had the Superfractor. That was it. Now you have one of ones in every single product, and not just one of ones. You have like 4 or 5 different variations of one of ones on top of printing plates, on top of the autograph version, non-autograph version. I mean, it just adds up really, really fast.
I'm glad you brought that up because that was exactly what I was thinking when you brought up the whole topic of grading one of ones. How do you feel about for ones that, so it's tricky because for the most part, with the exception of, that LeBron Black Shimmer Prism, at least with modern cards, for the most part, they grade relatively well, either a 9 or a 10, unless it's like just super poor quality control. But for like older stuff, how do you feel about it just grading it without a grade? So like just PSA authentic, just for the sake of having it in the slab for the protection.
The only problem with the authentic grade is with vintage.
Because the altered,
they don't make a difference between altered and authentic. And look, there's a lot of people that talk about, there's a grading company that just is authentic. And I think that's where like a company like HGA missed the mark. I think HGA makes the colorful cases, and there's a lot of collectors that want the colorful cases. I think if they slabbed everything as authentic, I think they would have just done really, really well. Just make sure that card's real, right? If it's real, great. Put it in that colorful slab. Then you have the full display that you can do instead of grades. You don't have to worry about graders, and you already have the production ready to go. And I think they would have done extremely well. But because of some quality control and then also some of the grades, I mean, like when they tried grading vintage cards, they were off compared to PSA standards or SGC or even like BVG on how they grade. They're just off. And because even if you have 1 or 2 cards that get out there, then everyone's going to completely trash your brand all across social media and everything like that, just because of the standards. You can't change your standards from one card to the next. And I still think HGA could do well if they go this authentication route, just go out here and authenticate it. But I think eventually some other company will end up doing it and just say, okay, here's slabs and everything like that. We'll put the card in it. Personally, I'm not a fan of it because I'd rather have a card graded or have it raw. I mean, if I'm gonna have a card raw, I'd rather just send it into PSA or Beckett or anything like that and get it graded rather than have it slabbed in another company. Then I have to crack open the case, make sure I don't damage the card because that's a big factor itself. I tried cracking open a BCCG case once and I accidentally scratched the card. It was only like a $10 card, but still, like, that happens, I'm sure, with the expensive cards too, which people don't talk about. But it's cracking cases can be dangerous sometimes. But besides that, though, I don't like the idea, but I know a lot of people really want to see a company do that.
Grading is tricky, man, because at the end of the day, it's all subjective, right?
It is.
Because you could send off a card that whoever your grader is on that day, that's just one set of eyes. I know with PSA, they supposedly goes through a number of graders. But you could send one in if they're having an off day or whatever, they could grade it lower, and then someone send it back in and they grade it. So they send it in and you get like say a PSA 8 or a 9, and then you resubmit it and then it comes back a 10. It's just like, oh well, okay, what actually is it, right? It's super subjective, and personally, I feel like I understand the purpose of it, because it's to create that scarcity, right? Where if there's so many cards, it's like, oh, this one's the highest grade, so that makes it worth that. But then we go back to the subject of like one of ones or cards that are serial numbered to 5 or 10, and it's like, okay, it may not be the highest grade, but there's only a finite number of them out there, and it's one of those ones where, like, in my opinion, the Metal Universe Precious Metal Gems are the most iconic parallel of all time. And it shows because there's so many of them that are graded, in the low 5s or 6s, but they still sell for a premium because of that understanding that there's only, the reds, there's only 100 of them. With the greens, there's only 10 of them. It's so rare. And back then, in the 1997, no one was thinking, oh, this card's going to be worth so much money back then. So no one thought to keep them in pristine condition, so to speak. But yo, man, I could talk cards with you, talk hobby for hours. Obviously, I don't want to take up too much of your time. So I guess
you're good. I have another hour. If you want to talk more, man, I have one more hour available.
I'm down, but I think it'd be best to save it for a future podcast. Because again,
sounds good.
I loved having you on. I guess one thing I want to close this off with a bit is, first off, what does the future hold for Breakout Cards? But also, in your opinion, what do you think the future holds for the hobby? In your hot take.
Yeah, so my future is Breakout Cards. Right now, I'm working on my Spotting Fakes book. I plan to have it out probably late July, early August. I still have to finish up writing the bios, finish getting some pictures in, but I'm almost done with the checklist as well. Figure out still what week's videos I need to do, which, by the way, if you guys are subscribed to the channel, I put down in the community poll what the cover for that Friday's video. So I let the audience choose what cards they want to see on the channel. So if you guys want to have the opportunity, just make sure to subscribe and take a look at the community tab with that. So that book's gonna be out soon. Card show wise, I'm sticking to a schedule going to about 2 out-of-state card shows a month. Now, I'm going to only be at these card shows pretty much Saturday and Sunday because I have a full-time job. But I will be going to 2 out-of-state, 2 in-state, or 1 to 2 in-state. It just depends on the weekend. Sometimes there's no shows. Sometimes there is shows. But that's my schedule with card shows as well. I want to go to different locations. So I've gone to Dallas quite a bit. Everyone likes Dallas videos, but there's so much more to explore, so many dealers to talk to and people. I mean, there's so much more than just going to a big show. So I'm actually going to go to Columbus next weekend for a smaller show. It's like an 80 table show. But I have some friends out there. It was like SRS podcast. You can check them out on Twitter as well. And stay at their place and then going to the card show. But then I'm also going to take a tour of Ryan Card Collector 2's shop and do an interview with him as well. So I'm trying to go to different markets, meet new people, and have fun with it. Because if you go to the same places, you're going to see the same dealers over and over again, the same people. If you go to different markets, you have opportunities to meet new people, new fans, and just network. And I think that's a fun part of the card show space instead of going the same. So 2 new different places every month. That's my goal with that. 1 local, as well as Spotting Fakes. Besides that, I'm going to do some other videos on the channel, more history. Later in the fall, I'm going to be building out a cricket series. So I'm still doing a lot of research on that every single week. Been building out a few documents to figure out what a rookie cards are, learning more about that sport, because cricket's not big in the United States. I mean, I don't know much of cricket in the United States, but everywhere else outside the world, you're talking about Australia, England, India, it's their biggest sports, like their big passion. So I'm learning a lot about that. When you go into a new sport, there's so much to learn. You shouldn't be going out there and buying what everyone says. You need to do your own research, figure out who the best players are, what are the best brands, what's the print run on these different things. There's so much more than just, I want to buy this rookie card of a player. So it's going to be like a 6-month plus project, learning the sport, learning of like intricacies and everything like that of it. And then I'm going to be building out a lot of content based around that. And yeah, you can find some other history videos on my channel. I try to build out content so you guys can learn. Like, a lot of people didn't know Topps and Bowman had a rivalry in the 50s. Everyone knows Topps owns Bowman. It's like a sub brand, but no one knew that they faced off against each other. In fact, that Bowman first started producing in 39, which by the way has the Ted Williams rookie card I really want to get. But that's pretty much what I'm doing right now.
Appreciate it, man. Again, this is a fun time. One thing I didn't realize was like I knew that Topps owned Bowman. I didn't realize just how quickly they squashed that. So they basically made light work out of them. And I was like, all right, we buy you out, and then it just that's actually crazy. But hey, man, I appreciate having you on, and I look forward to having more of these conversations with you.
Oh, it's gonna be a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course, bro. And